Welcome to episode 26 of the Danso Pitch podcast. I am your host, Charles Danso, joined by my team members. Daniel, welcome. Ramy, welcome. These are my good friends, the COO and CMO. We're all in one setting. This is the podcast for the Danso Financial Group. Make sure you guys follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, as well as YouTube. Gentlemen, how was your Labor Day weekend, and how are you guys doing today?
Great weekend. Stayed safe and, reconnected with family and just, we're in fall now. So it's crazy. This summer it felt like it just started and now it's over.
Yeah, I've been good. Well, glad to be back. It's Ramy here. And we got Daniel on here, so that's always a good time,
Yep.
Reuniting the three of us. And looking forward to today's podcast, man. I've been good, family good. I can't complain. So what are we getting into today, Charles?
Let's do it.
McDonald's, you fucking up yet again. They're right back at it. I haven't had these motherfuckers since college, and there's a fucking reason why. They were back with the bullshit.
High school for me.
Oh, for you? High school?
Yeah, I've been done with them.
It's crazy.
Damn, I got to join that wave because I just had them like last week.
Traitor. So pretty much getting into the episode, we want to discuss something serious. Right now, McDonald's, I know they have the Travis Scott sandwich, whatever burger that they have, that's just bullshit. Right now, McDonald's is facing a $1 billion lawsuit. 52 black ex-franchisees filed a $1 billion lawsuit of racial discrimination against McDonald's a couple weeks back, basically stating that the company of McDonald's was putting them through a financial suicide missions. So basically, let's further elaborate. Like I mentioned last week, Tuesday, 52 black former franchisees filed a complaint saying that racial discrimination forced them out of the fast food giant, being McDonald's. According to the complaint, the plaintiffs made an average of $700,000 less annually than the average across the U.S. McDonald's system.
Wow.
McDonald's, yeah.
That's crazy.
Crazy, right? McDonald's had pressured black franchisees into buying locations with higher costs and lower sales. The franchisee said that often it was in black neighborhoods. Black franchisees said McDonald's did not offer them the same expansion opportunities as they did with the white franchisees owners, and they forced them to withstand harsher inspections than their white counterparts. Gentlemen, what do you think of that?
I mean, it just screams total imbalance and, pretty much racial inequality in the hiring process that they have. The numbers speak for themselves. $700,000 less than the average across the U.S. system. These are all black plaintiffs coming together to file this class action lawsuit. So, it's in the numbers. If all these people are making less money than their counterparts, there's something fishy going on here. And this is not the climate to be in, to be, having these accusations brought against you, because this was going to severely impact their revenue stream going forward, I imagine.
Yeah, and it's just very, because this is a skewed number, right? Because we have to imagine, this file is being, the complaint is being filed by 52 black former franchisees, but the number could be significantly higher because of, those who are probably just not, they're affected by this, but they're not directly involved in the actual filing of the complaint. So we got to consider this could be potentially in the hundreds, because going back to the threshold of 700,000 being the average, and that these black owned franchises are below that. The disparity is quite frankly outrageous, because McDonald's is arguably the biggest franchise business to go into. There's hundreds of thousands of stores that a franchisee could take advantage of and be part of. So that for this lawsuit to come afloat, McDonald's is, as Charles said, really fucking up.
Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of says a lot that how we said it was that McDonald's pressured black franchisees into buying these locations, with higher costs and lower sales. That's the key word there, is pressured. They probably didn't get the same fair shake at opportunities in the non-black neighborhoods, as they called it. It would be different if those were chosen by these franchisees, but that's the pot you're given to choose from is bad or worse. That's not fair to anybody, and it's terrible business practice. So I think this is grounds for a pretty hefty payout on their end if they turn out to be successful in this lawsuit.
And it's really like a form of redlining when you really think about it, because they're systematically denying or refusing rather these black franchisees from a particular area, and putting them in other areas that have historically not as much financial gain as if they were to go into another area. And there's a lot of different fees that come into part with that, particularly insurance fees that they pay out in in higher premiums than they would if they were in the area of their choice, because this has nothing to do with upfront capital. If we look at the article and we look at what's going on, they probably, I would want to say at least half of these, black franchisees, they probably had the capital to go to the high, white neighborhoods, quote unquote, but they were just not given the opportunity. So, that's something else to consider. I
think that's a two-way street to look at, because again, a lot of a franchisee, well, let me first explain for the audience, I guess, to break it down what a franchise and a franchisee is. So basically, for the franchisee is a business in which one party, the franchisee, acquires access to whatever proprietary knowledge, however you say that fucking word, processes and trademarks, and of an established business, which is the franchisor. So what that basically means is, example, if Ramy or Daniel are looking to basically work in a business where they already have an established brand, a la McDonald's, a la Subway, a la Hilton Hotels, they would just go to the specific corporation. Let's use McDonald's for this example. And then they would ask if they can basically have a license where they can have a store, let's say in the neighborhood that they maybe grew up in, or some type of neighborhood they live in. They can have a separate McDonald's. That's how basically why you see every McDonald's on like every other corner. A lot of them are franchise. A lot of the owners of that specific location is a franchisee. And the main corporation is McDonald's itself, McDonald's HQ headquarters. That is the franchisor of the many franchisees. So I think being in the black neighborhoods, a lot of times they don't have the ability in terms of the wealth distribution as they would as the white neighborhoods. That's why when you do go to a lot of the black neighborhoods, it may be a joke, but that's why the ice machine never works. That's why you can't get a lot of the stuff, the services that you may get in the better neighborhoods if you go, because of the fact that they don't have as a back end as they will with their white counterparts, as they mentioned. So again, I think as Daniel and Ramy articulated, it is definitely one thing where the capital would be better distributed if McDonald's headquarters, the franchisor, was actually distributed equally. But what they're arguing right now is saying that, no, we're not getting the equal payouts that we were getting. A lot of times we were struggling just to even make ends meet because we were paying higher insurances. We'll touch more on the types of insurances you can get as a franchisee later, but we kind of just wanted to bring that in to the full circle for the audience listening, is that McDonald's is just one of the main pieces out of the many corporations that do this. And we did touch on this, Ramy, I think in episode 11, right, when we discussed redlining and how black folks usually in those type of neighborhoods pay a higher premium on insurance policies for their businesses as opposed to the white counterparts. So that's just something that's important to know.
Daniel mentioned it. It's a form of redlining, and that's typically a misuse of power and a terrible practice to have because it disadvantages one certain type of people or certain multiple kinds of people. So the key word there is disadvantage, and that's what's screaming out to me. They're making less money as owners. They're paying higher insurance costs, security costs, and they're not getting the opportunity to buy other franchises in different locations. So it's all, part of being a franchisee is buying into the bigger picture is to buy into the brand name of another company that's already established. So this is just building a terrible a culture at the company if your minority owners, your black owners, your Latino owners are already going into this thinking, they're giving you their capital to be under their name, and they can't even trust that they're going to be treated fairly. That's going to lead to more turnover down the line, more like they're not going to be able to maintain these people in their roles longer, and that's going to end up costing the company more money in the long run anyway than if they treated them fairly off the jump. So it's just a terrible business practice and a terrible ethical practice as well. So I can't see how this benefits McDonald's much in any way. Just a cheap way to get to pocket some extra money on their part, but it's going to blow up in their face here, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of touch on what you were saying, and for the audience, as Ramy and Daniel have articulated, in the complaint, the actual former black ex-franchisees, they actually mentioned that they actually it was more difficult for them to turn a profit in the location that they worked in because of the fact they did pay a higher insurance and security costs, which is very important. Security costs is basically that could be in terms of employee information, employment information. This can also be security in terms of manning the actual franchise certain location that they're in. Like example, if you're in a certain neighborhood in Brooklyn, maybe you might not have the security that you may have when you can easily call somebody to kind of handle a situation as you would in maybe the white neighborhoods. This is all comes into effect in terms of what they weren't getting and what McDonald's wasn't willing to basically pay to these black-owned franchisees, so to speak. So, example, they noted also that they were excluded from growth opportunities, such as, like we said, a chance to buy new stores that are available to the white franchisees. In part, through one of the plaintiffs basically mentioned that McDonald's corporation, the actual shareholders, are Old Boys Network. Now, we've heard Shannon Sharp, we've heard Stephen A. talk about this with NFL owners calling them the Old Boys Club. So I think it just isn't just strictly the sports. I think this is something that's been through a lot of these shareholders, these owners of these big corporations. They basically have their own network, as they call it, the Old Boys Network, which is important to note, which basically means that they basically bring in who they like, who they want specifically to be the image, quote unquote, of the brand. We'll talk about McDonald's right now, and who they don't want to basically excel as a result, which a lot of these former black-owned franchisees. So I think that's also important to note. This is what the plaintiffs, the ex-black franchisees, are noting to basically the court system and what they want as a reparation, so to speak, in terms of that $1 billion payout from McDonald's. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I'm curious to see if as a result of this class action lawsuit, 52 franchisees filing for about $1 billion. I'm curious to see if they win that, if they're gonna reinvest into buying more franchises within McDonald's, or if they're gonna, pack their bags and call and go buy into another brand name. Because like I said, 52 people that used to be former owners of your company leaving with $1 billion in their pockets, it's gonna be bad media publicity. It's gonna be, I feel like this is gonna shake the core of McDonald's business practice a little bit. So I'm curious to see the results of this. And yeah, go Daniel.
No, and you brought up the media, and that's so, tying it back to the whole Travis Scott thing. That's kind of McDonald's way indirectly of trying to smother the fire because this has already started. I mean, in my head, immediately I would think, if I were to go to McDonald's, I'm not going to McDonald's, but if I were to go to McDonald's, I would probably buy from the black-owned franchises versus going into, the white-owned franchises to purchase their McDonald's, just because I would want to support. I didn't know this was going on, behind the scenes. And this is probably, as Charles said, McDonald's just got the exposure of that. They just got exposed from doing this practice, but this is probably central in a lot of the franchises, like Subway. This is Dunkin' Donuts. They probably do this too on a lower scale, but this is happening as well. So it's going to be interesting to see the dynamic in consumers when they go for these fast foods. They're probably now going to consider, hey, is this McDonald's or is this Dunkin' Donuts black-owned? Is this a black-owned franchise, or is this a white-owned franchise, or is it just part of a chain? Doing that just internal reflection, they might consider buying, the former rather than the latter. So that'll be interesting.
But this is why, and for me, like I said, fuck you, McDonald's, for putting Travis Scott in. No disrespect to Travis Scott. Kudos to the guy. Look, he's getting his money. I have no issue with that. But a lot of these PR campaigns that these Netflixes do, these McDonald's do, the corporations go down the line, NFL, I could keep going on and on and on. They need to stop the bullshit. And as black people, it's time that we start understanding who are these old boys, so to speak, that these plaintiffs are mentioning. Because again, you guys listen to our podcast. You guys listen to a lot of our information that we post on the Danso Financial Group network, where we discuss in terms of stocks. When you have stocks, you're buying shares in the company, which makes you have voting power. Right. So a lot of times when you're voting these people in, you just don't vote because they have a name and they've been there for God knows how long. That's why they're able to keep us black people out, because of the fact they've been there since the 60s, 70s, 80s. A lot of these people are 30, 40, 50 years in deep. Their grandchildren, children are going to be in there. So that's important to know. So when you're buying companies like through stock market, don't do it because it's cool. Do it also because of the fact that you understand that you have the power to vote a lot of these people in. You have a right to understand how a company is moving. A lot of these things get pushed under the rug. Like we said, even us discussing, some of us had mentioned we didn't even know this was happening. A lot of people don't. A lot of people don't see it, but they know it, because that's why they quickly made the PR move to bring in Travis Scott. That's what Charles believes. Maybe Charles is wrong in his world, in my sick mind, but that's what I believe. I believe they made this move because of the fact they understand the heat that was coming on them. So they had to shift the narrative. So they have, the popular black musician that people love, that's connected to the Kardashians. So let's make a move. Let's try to get a business through him. And then, now I see all these other black celebrities following. I got to try the McDonald's sandwich. No, the fuck you don't. What you need to do is go buy some shares where you can have the voting power to get these people out. Or if not get them out, at least make them feel the pressure. Like, look, we have the power to control the narrative. That's all I got to say to that.
Yeah, I think it's like patching up. It's like patching a leak with a Band-Aid, They just try to do anything to deflect and try to, nerf some of this incoming heat that they're about to receive. But I think it's just, it's just a shabby way of trying to pretend like they care. You're trying to salvage some of the dollars you're about to lose, because as we said, in the current times we live in, it is becoming ever more present what businesses are aligned with, what is the culture of the company, whether you're a black-owned business or whether you support black-owned businesses. So to be associated with a name that doesn't support these things is going to be very detrimental. So let's have some Travis Scott burgers. That'll get some people to come into our store. No, as you said, no, the F you don't. We don't fall for that type of easy marketing ploy. That's all I'll say. You know what I mean? Like there's a systematic issue going on in the company leadership. So don't go in there just to because Travis Scott's one of your favorite artists. Trust me, you can get him, you can put money in his pocket in other ways that doesn't disadvantage, people that are already disadvantaged. So I'm just, it's just a shaking my head moment right now. I'm complete.
And they're they're really, I mean, obviously no company is going to outright say, oh yeah, that's what we did. They're going to deny it. For, McDonald's to Forbes, they quote, not only do we categorically deny the allegations that these franchises were unable to succeed because of any form of discrimination by McDonald's, we are confident that the facts will show how committed we are to the diversity and equal opportunity of the McDonald's system, including across our franchisees, suppliers, and employees, quote unquote. That was from McDonald's to Forbes. CEO Chris Kempczynski said that in June, McDonald's had created more Black millionaires than any other corporation. Now, that could be argued, but the fact is, they, in tandem with this whole Travis Scott move, they already have kind of like a pillow. They're creating the fluff to kind of distract from what is really going on. And as Charles said, no, this is all just a PR marketing campaign to distract from what's really going on the inside. You need to really look at the corporate structure, get some stocks, know when it's time to vote for the right people who are making these moves that led to the situation in the first place. Because every corporation is going to have a backup plan for something like this, because they know they're doing it. McDonald's knew that they were doing this. So for them to come right off the bat to have some kind of like plan in place right at the moment, it just shows that they know they're deliberately doing these things. And they're yep. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you guys off, but what I was just mentioning is like what you just mentioned, Daniel. That's exactly the issue. Is like you said, this has been going on so long that, and they always do the PR shit to kind of clean it up. This isn't the first time that McDonald's have faced a lawsuit. In 1983, a Black franchisee sued McDonald's, accusing the same shit that they basically are doing right now. Is by keeping the Black franchisees chained from buying stores in white neighborhoods. This is in 1983. Let's piggyback a little bit further back. The first Black franchisee was Herman Petty, who opened a store in Chicago, a McDonald's in Chicago in 1968. He also was, him and a dozen other Black McDonald's franchisees formed the National Black McDonald's Operations Association in 1972. So you're telling me since then, you guys still don't get it. And you tell me because you made people millionaires, but how many people are struggling and don't have millions? These are 52 people. Daniel mentioned these are just the 52 people that stepped up, which tells me there's more people.
Mm-hmm.
And wasn't this former CEO the same guy that was facing sexual assaults and he still got a severance package? Now you guys want to take it back because you found out that more women were coming out? Come on, McDonald's. I know this game. McDonald's, I know this. What you're doing is bullshit. You're not the only corporation. We know there's many other corporations that do this. But we're here to bring this shit to light. But I'm going to step away from that for a second. I want to also not deter those that may be interested in getting franchises outside of the bullshit that you call McDonald's. I spit on your food, McDonald's. Fucking disgust me right now. What I was saying is, I want to also, for the franchisee owners or anybody that you know that wants to own a franchise, I do want to not deter you from that. So, gentlemen, I do also want to mention some benefits that you get from actually being a franchisee. I'll start it off. One thing is an established brand. Also, you have a proven business concept and operating model, as well as lower statistical risk of failure. Gentlemen, anything you guys want to add to that in terms of what successes you can garner from being a franchisee?
Yeah, I would agree that you're purchasing a proven method, a proven business model that works, as compared to if you're starting your own business and you're, it's kind of like you obviously do your due diligence, but there's still going to be a trial and error versus when you have like a proven system and you have already a built-in HR system for employees, you have a marketing system, things are in place for you to get the business moving relatively fast compared to if you try to start it all on your own, and it could cost more in the long run for that, starting your own business compared to considering a franchise. Although there's ongoing fees, as we mentioned earlier, security fees and there's licensing fees and things like that. It will outweigh what the startup cost would be if you start your own business, assuming it's relative, like a restaurant, for example. Since this is more relative, you will spend more money starting a restaurant chain than trying to go the franchise way. And just touching on the difference between chain and franchise, because I know we can get a little mixed up with those. A chain business is where the parent company owns all of the business locations. So in this case, McDonald's is the parent company and they own all the business locations. And we described what a franchise is, where the different stores are owned by separate individuals who run those stores. So it could be said like this: all franchises are chains, but not all chains could be franchises.
Okay, that's an interesting way to look at it. Ramy, you have something you want to add to that?
Not much. I just wanted to add that going the franchise route is an easier entryway, and it comes with a certain level of security and foundation is already laid. But the key there is that you're far more steady and stable. One of the big risks of starting a business from scratch is that if it fails, or if you're not bringing in revenue to meet your expenses, you're going to shut down. But when you start with a franchise, it already comes with a brand name, with a certain number of customers that will follow that brand name, and a lot of your early costs are covered. So it's much easier to hit the ground running, as opposed to starting your own business. Starting your own business is far more high risk, high reward, because you are going to be able to make more in the long run due to not having to pay all these kinds of fees. But again, high risk meaning you could lose everything and you'll have to get your clientele base from scratch. I think that's one of the most underlooked parts of having a franchise, is that, for example, a Domino's or a McDonald's, you don't have to convince anybody to eat there. They just know your name. They'll find you if you're in their local area. Meanwhile, if you're like Dylan's Dandy Burgers or something like that, like, I'm probably going to be like, I've never been there, I'm not going to go there. Getting the clientele is already locked in is a very stable part of being a franchisee. So security is the most present thing I would say there. Like, you're more guaranteed to last than if you start your own business.
Yeah. Just to add on to what you're saying, for our entrepreneurs out there, a lot of you guys that have businesses should understand that you don't always have to go the route of me starting my own business. We understand that it sounds great to have something that you own, but you can also own something through an established brand, like we mentioned, being a franchisee. Because again, starting your own business is very costly. A lot of sleepless nights, a lot of lack thereof customer base. You have to build your own clientele. So as these guys mentioned, having a franchisee is just another way we want to give the entrepreneurs out there. And there's a lot of us right now, especially as being the millennial generation. There's a way where you can actually be an entrepreneur and you don't have to start your own business. You don't have to put the pressure on yourself. We're not deterring those that want to do it. We're saying, hey, do what you need to do. But we're just trying to give you another idea to say, like, hey, you can be a business owner through an already established brand where you already have everything laid out for you. You just have to run the day-to-day operations. And sometimes, hey, for some people, that's less pressure. We understand that everybody has different things that they have to handle throughout their life. So obviously that's just one of the ways that you can look at entrepreneurship. It doesn't have to be you just literally starting something for the ground, because let's be honest, a lot of the businesses that start do fail, and a lot of people don't know how to handle that type of failure. We just here to be honest to you. A lot of people will fail in their business. A lot of people will want to not sacrifice the money needed or the time or resources. So again, having a franchise, so to speak, allows you to have everything in one already laid out for you. Now let's move on. We wanted to cover the insurance, right? For the franchisors and franchisees. So let's first start off, gentlemen. Give me about 3 minutes to go through these real quick for the audience.
All right.
We want to basically discuss for you guys quickly insurance that you can get when you actually have a franchise. Now, example, you can actually own the franchise not solely through fast food. You can have a franchise through having a tax business. H&R Block is a form of a franchise. You can have an insurance business. That's a franchise. You can have, you want to sell, I don't know, video games through video game stores. You can also have, that's a franchise, GameStop, whatever franchise. So as a franchise or franchisor, so to speak, the different types of insurances that you can get, we're really going to highlight the main ones right now, is the franchise errors and omissions liability. This protects the franchisor, executives, and the franchise system from litigation brought by the franchisees when their expectations fall short. Example, we're gonna be fair here. So example, McDonald's, for actually getting sued, can actually countersue with this insurance for the black franchisees that are actually suing with what we mentioned, called the franchisor errors and omissions liability. Another one is the management liability. It's called D&O. This covers executives and board members from litigation brought by customers, franchisees, and investors from claims of mismanagement or breach of fiduciary duties. The next one is employment practices, EPL liability. I'm purposely going slow for you gentlemen listening as well as the audience, so you guys can also catch what I'm saying. Again, I mentioned the employment practices is called EPL liability. Defense claims stemming from the employment process, such as discrimination, sexual harassment, or wrongful termination. These three that I mentioned, again, is called the franchisor errors and omissions liability, management liability, and employment practices liability. Protects the franchisor. The alternative of what insurance protects the franchisees is one, the general liability. This is protection from third-party claims alleging damages for incidents such as bodily injury, personal injury, or property damage. So when you guys remember with the killing of George Floyd, when a lot of these companies were getting burned down to small businesses as a result, this insurance actually covers a lot of these small businesses, these franchisees in your neighborhoods. Property liability offers protection of your building, its contents, and employees. This is a two-for the general liability. This is more singular in terms of the property liability. It strictly protects everybody that's in the building as well as the building itself. Now, commercial auto, hired and non-owned coverage is for vehicles in the event they incur physical damage, cause physical damage or bodily injury to others. Uber has commercial auto insurance. If a driver gets hit, that person has to pay out that insurance, and that's covered through the commercial auto or non-owned insurance. Now, example, Ramy, if you have a business, Daniel, you have a business. We do have a business. It's called Danso Financial Group. If we're driving, we get hit, we're liable to sue through this insurance. Moving on, the umbrella liability. This offers additional coverage beyond primary policy limits. Workers' compensation. We all have this in our 9-to-5 jobs as well. This ensures employees that suffer job-related injuries receive the care they need. A lot of Jamaicans like to use this compensation. For my Jamaicans out there, Daniel, I know you're Jamaican. I got a few of them.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, this is what they like. They like this insurance. I know it.
That's a fact.
Professional liability is the last one. It covers the cost of certain legal fees that your franchise may face because of claims and lawsuits against them based on the advice or services they provide. Now, there's also cyber liability, which provides coverage against costs that can accrue because of theft or breach of client or customer data. And EPLI, the most important one, I think, offers protection from claims associated with the employment process, including discrimination and wrongful termination. This is what the franchisees are suing using this insurance called EPLI. So make sure to pay attention to that if you are looking to learn more about the 52 ex-Black franchisees suing McDonald's right now through that insurance. You guys got anything you want to add to that?
I mean, no, that really breaks it down, the options that an entrepreneur can go to if they go start a franchise. These are the insurance options that they have. And, you know, the common denominator in this is that, you know, you want to follow the system that works. So, you know, do the research and make sure that you protect your brand. This goes back to episode 19. You always want to protect your brand, whatever it is, whether you go into a franchise or whether you decide to start your own business. There's still going to be other insurance options that you'll need to have for your business.
And it's important, and I think it's important to know these things, whether you're a franchisor, a franchisee, or anything in between, because, you know, you got to know what is in play when you sign up to be a franchisee, so you don't get played in the long run. You know, the fact that these 52 employees, they know about this insurance and they're using it for their lawsuit is good on their part. You know, if they didn't know that they had this option, then there'd be no way to seek these reparations that they're seeking. So I think it's important to know the full picture of what you're signing up for and the possible pitfalls, so that you don't get, you know, taken advantage of in the long run. So as Charles just gave you the game you need to be successful if you wanted to look into being a franchisee. So don't take that lightly.
Yeah, I think it's just important to know for my teenagers out there that are working right now in fast food, as well as adults that work in any type of warehouse, any type of business, any type of 9-to-5 corporation. This insurance does focus on the franchisees, but as a business owner, it's important to understand these. Even if you are starting your own business, at some point you want to expand, right? So I think it's important to understand the type of insurance that you can cover and what your employees are liable for. Also, I think it's also important to note that understanding certain insurances, read your contract. If you don't know the specifics of certain terminology, it's important to hire a lawyer or hire somebody that's in the legal world that can give you a better breakdown before signing a lot of these contracts, especially as a franchisee, some type of business owner. I think it's important to understand the legal terminology behind it. So again, with the 52 Black ex-franchisees, my personal thinking, they probably not going to win the lawsuit, unfortunately. But I do believe they will get some type of compensation. It's not going to be $1 billion. Sorry. That's just how the game is. It sucks. It really does fucking suck, to be honest.
Yeah.
But we all understand that this is how the corporations are set up. This is why we say vote. It's not just vote in politics. It's also vote in business. You can also have the ability to vote in business, especially if you are some type of shareholder through stocks, any type of real estate. If you own some type of property through REITs, you own the building of the corporation. You also have a voting power in there as well. A lot of people don't know that, so that's important to note. So again, vote. And like I mentioned, these are my last thoughts, and I'll let the gentleman finish off. What I was saying is, again, I don't believe that they will win this, but you guys can do your research for the audience listening in. This is 52 ex-Black franchisees of McDonald's suing the McDonald's Corporation right now. I don't believe they'll win, but I do believe they will get some type of compensation. Daniel, Ramy, your thoughts. Final thoughts, excuse me.
Yeah, I think they'll reach some kind of settlement that will be below the $1 billion mark. But in addition to reparations, they might also get because this is already all over social media, so there's definitely going to be some level of social restructuring that'll happen both on McDonald's end and for black franchisees across the industry, because this occurring is bringing to light, and this is not the first time, as Charles mentioned, but this being so huge, I think is going to start its own interior movement within other black franchises across multiple industries, because they're going to look at their locations, they're going to look at how their bottom line is, and start to ask questions as well. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I think Daniel brings up a good point. This is going to start a chain reaction among other big corporations. People are going to be looking into their hiring practices, their franchise practices, and seeing where they align with something similar. They know that, especially if this ends up being a successful lawsuit, which I might be on the fence about it, but I'm more on the opposite side of Charles. I think they are going to win this lawsuit, and it might be close to $1 billion. For a corporation so large, bringing in so much money on an international level, it's really not that bad. So I think with the current events that they're probably going to go more on the harsher side than on the easier side. But again, once that happens, it's going to open the door wide open for minorities and all other companies to be reevaluating their practices. Am I being redlined? Am I at a disadvantage at this company? Should we form a class action lawsuit? So I think something like this sets a pretty big precedent, but rightfully so, because we're always thinking about systematic racism on a government level, or from the police, or from all these things, but we're not realizing that it's everywhere, including the food that we eat, the clothes that we buy. There are racist systems and things that are disadvantaging minority populations that we don't think about as often. So I'm glad this is being brought to light, and I say the results are going to dictate the pace for a lot of other similar situations.
I definitely agree. And I would thank you guys for your insight. Again, fuck you, McDonald's, with all due respect. And I keep saying that shit because you guys are just a bunch of, with all due respect, with many other corporations following suit that do bullshit like this. Anyways, like I said, thank you guys for listening in. Again, subscribe to the Danso Financial Group YouTube. This is the Danso Pitch, available on your favorite audio platform. Stream us, especially on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and subscribe through our YouTube, Danso Financial Group. All right, I'm getting out of here, guys. Thank you.
All right,
Be
good
safe.
night, everybody.
Take care.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Enjoy your weekend.